Matt here again. Today I'm going to do a review of the top 6 bodybuilding competitors in the 2015 Arnold Classic Australia. It shouldn't come as much of a surprise to anyone that Dexter Jackson was able to garner a second win just 1 week after winning the 2015 Arnold Classic, although he is claiming it's becoming rough to continue on training at the level that he's at. Regardless, the result is what it is, and he won yet again, and I think it was absolutely a deserving victory as far as his condition and his size. I think that also aesthetics, symmetry, posing came into play, and he really isn't regressing as far as I'm concerned. That's Dexter Jackson doing a front lat spread. As you can see, he hasn't regressed in this shot. Maybe there's been a time in the past where his legs may have been a bit more cut or something to that effect. Usually legs, I would say, are the first that go with age, but Dexter hasn't lost any size in his legs, which is interesting. Vince Taylor, for instance, when he was competing after the age of 45, he did have a little bit of size loss in his legs, and that's not uncommon at all. I would say that that's actually pretty common amongst bodybuilders with their age. I think that their legs are the first to go. Troy Elbs was competitive up until the age of 47. Troy's legs did go down just a touch, not major or anything like that, but you did notice it. But with Dexter, you don't. The conditioning might not be exactly what it was in the legs, but overall I'd say it's pretty close, and in some areas just as good as he ever was. So pretty amazing. And this is what I mean when I say the conditioning in some areas, like in his upper body, in this most muscular, this to me is as good as he's ever looked in the upper body. The legs, maybe he's been a bit drier before, a bit more cut, but this is just ultimately absolutely crazy. Even if this is 99% or 95% or something of his best showing ever, that's given the amount of time he's been at this elite level of bodybuilding, it really speaks volumes. Very, very rarely have there been competitors as consistent as Dexter. Branch Warren came second, just as he did at the 2015 Arnold Classic. This shot, I think, goes to show a little bit of smoothness maybe in the upper body, in the abdominal area a little bit. Legs look pretty cut. Arms look good. I'm not sure if there's a bit of an injury there in perhaps his right arm triceps that you can see beyond what he's had in the past. Like, I don't know if that's getting a bit worse with time. I don't know if it's staying about the same. He's still placing extremely high. It's not as if he's doing very poorly, but on the right side with the triceps, with the lat, I think that there might be just a bit of regression, but his conditioning is good enough where he's still going to be able to place well for a while. I'd be concerned for Branch in the respect that I think his hard training is just at some point has to end. I just don't know how he'll be able to keep up with this forever. And I do think that eventually he'll succumb to more injuries because it's just human beings are not intended to be at that level forever. And he's been at it for quite some time. Side chest goes to show his conditioning, especially in his actual, like his chest itself, not just and the entire side, but the chest, you can see it in the calves, you can see the vascularity in the shoulders and arms. But in particular, his chest is very shredded. He looks good, and he is still at the top level, and I'm not aware of any plans that Branch has to retire. This is just a shot to show his overall conditioning and that it is pretty good. Legs, upper body, abs look better here now that he's flexing them. Sometimes it's just a bad angle too, or the picture was taken at a less than opportune moment. This really goes to show that he still is hard, conditioned, and large. Not as aesthetic as some of the other guys, and arms might not be as big as some of the other guys proportionally, might not have the shape. Conditioning and size are going to play a huge role. More or less, Branch has those qualities. Justin Compton placed third, and this is just a comical look for him. This is sort of interesting. Opposite to Dexter Jackson, Justin has incredibly shredded legs, but his upper body is a little bit more smooth in comparison. He does have vascularity in his arms. You can see very prominent veins and on his biceps there, but his upper body, his chest in particular, isn't quite as shredded as Dexter's, his abs for that matter, also shoulders, but legs are absolutely shredded. So he seems to be able to get in great lower body conditioning and also very good upper body conditioning, but not to the point as some other competitors, which is interesting because the opposite is often true. A side pose that shows Justin's 3D thickness, it's pretty amazing to me. He's absolutely comical in this shot in terms of hamstrings that are just hanging. Triceps are huge, arms in general are huge, shoulders are huge, chest. It's pretty crazy. I don't really know how much more space he has to pack on muscle in his frame, to be honest. Back is crazy. Look at those glutes. That is usually a sign of conditioning. The last things to come out would be the glutes for a lot of competitors. Justin has absolutely conditioned glutes, conditioned hamstrings, huge calves. Back and delts are huge. His back might not be as conditioned as his lower body, which is interesting again because, as I said, the opposite is true for a lot of competitors. However, maybe his shoulders overpower his back just a little bit. Same with his arms. Perhaps even during training, his arms and shoulders are doing work that his back should be doing, potentially, because it just looks to me that they're massive and so developed and most likely strong as a result, so I could see that happening during his training. Evan Centopani, consistent, came in looking really well. Hard to say from this shot if his legs might be down just a touch. I did feel that they looked a bit bigger during the lead-up photos to the Arnold Classic compared to the Arnold Classic itself. Perhaps his conditioning is a little less than I've seen it before, but regardless, still a great competitor and good enough to place fourth with a good group of 3 guys ahead of him. Side chest, not much can be said here other than I've seen Evan better, but he's still doing it really well and still carries the size, and at this point it's just a matter of will he nail his conditioning. Is he going to be able to do it 2 weeks in a row? This is not necessarily easy. Sometimes you hit it, sometimes you don't as a competitor, so it's can't really suggest anything to Evan other than sometimes it's just hard to maintain a peak, and he had to do it. Same with the other competitors, and that's not always easy. I think I've seen him a bit more ripped than this, but he still looks very good. Evan from the back, his glutes are ripped. His glutes might not be in the same level of conditioning as Justin Compton's glutes, but for that matter, perhaps his hamstrings are. I can see there's some big cuts on his hams there. If you were to look at his right ham, you could see that. Upper body is huge, and you can see it from the back. He looks good in this pose, although he did have some tough competition, as I said. Brandon Curry, I've seen him more conditioned than this. He isn't injured, as far as I can tell. This picture doesn't show any injury, at least not one that I can see. But he's a bit smooth here. He's been more ripped in the past. That much I can say for certain. But he is carrying some great size. He looks incredibly full, but could probably lose a bit of water in this shot. And had he done so, he might have been able to launch ahead of Evan perhaps, or somebody else. Most likely it would have been a fight between him and Evan. It's hard to say, even if he was in condition, whether or not he would have been able to crack that top 3, but he might have been able to move up a spot had he been a bit more ripped here. And I have seen him more ripped before. When I was in Toronto, he was more ripped, and that's not the only showing. For example, at the Toronto Pro, when I was there, I was watching him compete, he was more ripped than this. So he'll be able to do it again, I'm sure, but he looks okay here, very big, but just not as shredded as he's been. Another shot showing good conditioning for sure, but good compared to what? Good compared to what he's presented before? No. Good compared to some of the competitors ahead of him? No. But still in shape, to be sure, but just not quite at the level that we know that he's capable of. It could have been a number of reasons leading up to that, and I'm sure that Brandon will come in shredded in the future. Another one lacking some conditioning that he's displayed before. As I said, not injured. That's important. I don't see anything showing as far as injury. He'll get it on point again. He'll do very well. No doubt about that. I see no reason why Brandon can't continue on to compete at a very high level in bodybuilding. Roelly Winklaar, I've seen him look better. At the same time, he is pretty good here. His quads are cut for sure. His abs are showing. His arms look good. His forearms are vascular. It's a pretty good pose. He's just been better, and it's hard to say if judges also compare competitors to previous versions of themselves, and whether or not they should do that is also a good question. I think that really they should be compared to their competition. Roelly's looked better before, but he does still look good here. Side chest, I know I've seen him more ripped in this pose before. I've seen his triceps pop a little bit more, but still conditioned. Also the delts maybe a bit more. The chest, you can see the conditioning in his chest, but I've also seen his chest more conditioned. Not bad. I've seen him look softer than this, but definitely I've seen him harder, so it's sort of both. And as it turns out, in this lineup, it wasn't enough for him to place any higher than he did. This is a very good pose for Roelly overall. It's still a good one here. He's had more separation in the delts before. In this particular shot, he's had more conditioning in the chest. He's been more conditioned in the quads, but he still is pretty ripped here. This is pretty good. It's just that he's been at a higher level before, and again, he will be in the future. So those are my thoughts on the 2015 Arnold Classic in Australia. Please share your position and your opinions about the bodybuilders in the comments below. I thought it was a pretty good contest. I'm definitely happy to see an Arnold Classic come to Australia. It's not that active as far as the pro bodybuilding scene, so they get to have their one pro contest per year, and that's pretty good for those living in Australia. Bodybuilding definitely has some action in Australia, but not in the pro circuit very much. It's basically their one major show, and to see Arnold lend his name to the contest and be involved in its production is a good thing. So once again, any comments below, and I'll be back to post more videos, hopefully on a regular basis from now on. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.